All right, guys, we are back with a Todd Fischer Sr. battle. This is, I don't know what number it is. I think it's number 3 or 4 that Todd has built. I totally spaced on asking him exactly, but I have the prototype. This was the prototype that Todd Sr. built. Now, if you think this is the ugliest knife you've ever seen, which when I got my first battle, that was one of the first comments on the video, then this may not be the video for you to watch. So you can click off right now and I won't be offended. That's okay. I mean, I guess I will actually be a little bit offended because I would love for you to stay and chat about this model. So, Todd Sr., he nailed it. Is it wrong for me to like this one better than the prototype that I own? Is that wrong? Should I covet my neighbor's knife? I guess that's like one of the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's knife, right? So my neighbor, Tim, up in Canada, is the proud owner of this one. And I don't know that I've really kind of done the specs and the stuff. So we're going to run through the specs on this guy really quick, kind of like a normal video. And then we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about this one and how it is refined from the prototype and how it's kind of leaning more towards the original design language that Frank Fischer, Todd's son, originally came up with back in, I think, 2013. All right, so what you've got is 5 1/8 closed, 9 inches overall. So this is not a small knife by any means. 3.95 inch blade, 0.012 behind the edge, and man, is this thing sharp. Okay, blade thickness is 0.186. Blade steel is a Chad Nichols Raindrop Sanmai, and we'll zoom in a minute. Weighs in at 9.1 ounces. So again, not a small lightweight. This is a heavy hitter. No question about that. Overall thickness, 0.748. So almost 3/4 of an inch thick minus the clip. And it runs on bearings and has great action. This is, I think, pretty much the action that Tim wanted in talking with Tim about this build. He told me he wanted kind of a medium detent, which it has, and not drop shut, but a kind of a controlled fluid shut, which this absolutely has. This thing is incredible. All right. So for the materials, and I may get some things wrong, and Tim or Todd can chime in. You have a wave pool zircotized scales, pocket clip, backspacer, and pivot collars, titanium bolsters, and liners. Yeah, with orange peel on the bolsters. This thing is just rad. So now let's zoom in and give you a close-up look. And then we'll compare and contrast this versus the prototype versus some of the older original Frank Fischer builds, because I have a couple of those myself. All right. This thing is just beautiful. Now, it's very similar in materials to the prototype, but what Tim wanted was something a little more of a matte finish than a bright, kind of glossy finish. And I think Todd nailed it. Some orange peeling on the bolsters. This pocket clip works better in the pocket than the prototype, and we'll show you that also. And even in talking with Todd after he built this one, he says it's his best battle that he built because it's the most current battle. And I think that like a lot of us in life, as we do something once, we try to do it better the next time, right? So every time Todd is building a battle, he is trying to do it better than the last one, which I think is great. That's what we should strive to do. Now, Todd is making a few of these a year right now. You can reach out to him on Facebook or Instagram. He is only doing a couple of battles here and there. As most of us know, Frank is unable to make battles right now, and we're not going to get into why and how and what. Everybody has their opinions on Frank, and I'm not going to get into details. He made some poor life choices, and he is paying the consequences for that right now. Inside, you have blued titanium liners that have jeweled engine turning, jeweling on the inside. And it's only blued on the inside, which is cool because it's just the raw kind of satin finish on the outside to match the bolsters. Okay. Now, while I don't condone any of Frank's choices and decisions in life, I try not to judge people by their bad acts. Sometimes we've all had a mistake in life. We've all done things we wished we hadn't. We've all done things that maybe have gotten us in trouble, that we're not proud of and that we're ashamed of. And if you want to throw stones while you live in your glass house, that's on you. But we're not going to do that in the comments here because, well, it's my channel and we're not going to go there. All right, so that's enough about that. I think Frank is an awesome dude. I think Todd Jr., TJ, is also an awesome dude. I have knives from both of them, and I have knives from Todd Sr. It's an amazing family. And one of these years, I am going to plan a trip to Florida and hang out with Todd Sr. because, well, he seems like a really cool dude to hang out with. And I would love to hang out over there and, you know, do a tour of his shop, whatnot. He has invited me out. He told me I'm welcome anytime. It'll happen. All right, so this one is a little more towards the older versions. Okay, there are some nuances here. It's just the kind of rounded bolsters as opposed to this S shape that Frank was doing in more recent years. Okay, it's one of the differences. The flipper tab is a little bit different as well. This is much more of a Todd Sr. flipper tab. It's very similar to what I have on my Archangel. And it's got a little jimping on top. This is much more of a Frank flipper tab. Not to nitpick, and I am not a knife maker or designer or anything, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn. Never mind. I'm just some knucklehead with a camera. That's all I am. I would put maybe, like he did on the prototype, I think there's like 3 jimping lines. I would maybe put 2 or 3 right there. Might be just a little bit, just a little thing. Just a little thing. Okay? Now, and I like the S's. On my Grail battle, my very first battle, I liked the S. And this was one of the first ones, if not the first one, where they did kind of that S on the bolsters. Frank did. That was at the request of the original purchaser and commissioner of this knife. Okay? So I think this is maybe the first time they used that little S. Previously, here is one that Frank built. More just kind of a swooped line. I like both. Like, it's hard to say you don't like one or the other. This particular one is a bolster lock. Okay, so it's much thinner. This used to be Tim's up in Canada. This is the one he sold me so that he could help fund that new one from Todd Sr. Gosh, we have a crazy, crazy hobby. All right, so back to some differences. In the prototype, Todd really kind of swooped it down pretty hard here at this angle. And Tim wanted it a little more kind of leaned back. I really appreciate that because it just fits so much better in my hand. It's not cramped. There's a little bit of room and give there. In the prototype, you're really locked in and there's not much wiggle room and it just feels a slightly bit cramped. Now, I'm not complaining. I bought this on purpose. I mean, not exactly on purpose. It was an auction. I was the last bid in hopes of just raising the price for Todd. And lo and behold, nobody else bid and Dirk gets it. There's a little bit of stuff here on the blade of this one just because I have been handling this quite a bit. And so let me just kind of wipe off all of that stuff there. This blade is just beautiful. The grind is awesome. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. This is a great one, and Tim is super excited. One other thing that's a little bit different that I like more about this one is the blade shape. The shape is very similar, but the angles of the Tonto are different, and it's really hard to show, but it just looks better on the bottom one, in my opinion. And it's more true to the original, I believe, in my opinion. I like this shape. It's just the angles are slightly different. The prototype came out a little more pointy. I hope that's making sense. I'm fumbling with my words here because I don't know how to explain it exactly, but it's a thing. Again, nothing wrong with the prototype. One of the things I do like about the prototype is that it has Sanmai bolsters, so it kind of ties the blade in. However, sometimes less is more, and I think just the titanium bolsters was the absolute way to go on this one for Tim. The pocket clip, let me show you what I'm talking about there. You know I am kind of a nitpicker on the pocket clips. While there is a little more room here, the angle of the removing from the pocket needs a little more ramp, like on the one on the top. This one comes in and out of the pocket super easy. This one here, Tim's. However, it's not quite as thick. So depending on your jeans, you may or may not get it all the way up to here. It may stop around here. This one just has more room for your pants, but the clip right there, it does hang up in the pocket depending on which jeans I have on that day. So just something to think about. But I think this one works fantastic. And if I look at the Grail one that Frank did, again, very slim back here, but this ramp does work really well. So if we want to go real old school, here is one back from 13, 14-ish time frame. Very similar flipper tab. This one is just really plain titanium with a acid washed blade. Nothing super fancy, which I love. Just plain basic awesomeness. This is kind of a historical piece because it's so old. The lockup is super light on this one. And I am a little nervous about carrying and using it, but I'm also nervous about sending it to Todd to have adjusted because you always take a risk when you adjust and rework things. So I don't know what I'm going to do with that one, but Tim, this thing is fantastic. I'm not even going to call dibs because, well, I don't want to. The other great thing about Todd Sr. is he's just such a great guy to talk with. He and I have had long conversations. He's super approachable. I asked him a question right before I filmed it, and it's like 9:30-ish his time. And he responded right back. He goes, oh yeah, this and that, whatever. So he's super approachable, super great to talk with, has a lot of ideas. And if you want something built, he's the man. He and I have talked about doing a mini Archangel for a while. I'm holding off on any more knife builds until 2024 at some point, just because I have one build working on right now from Jeff Vandermeulen, and I bought a house, and just, I have a grandson on the way, so I need to have a little spare cash for that. So, I'm just waiting. But I guarantee there will be another Todd Sr. build that him and I come up together with. So stay tuned for that, of course. I think that covers it. I'm going to put a link to my Todd Fischer playlist up here in the corner, as well as my Frank Fischer playlist in the other corner. If you want to go and see my video on my Holy Grail, which, make no mistake, this is still my Grail knife. I don't have another Grail. There are other knives that I would like to have in my collection, but nothing else has changed my mind of this being my Grail knife. So I am very, very content with this knife, 1,000%. So there will be more knives. I was super excited to get this one. There will be more Fischers, both from Todd, Frank, and TJ. I guarantee it. I'll have more. But yeah, I'm pretty content right now with where my collection is. There are a couple of knives I would like to fill in some gaps, but feeling pretty good. There you go, guys. If you made it all the way to the end, just comment battle. I would love to hear that you made it this far, because I know I kind of rambled on about it, but I think there's just so much cool stuff to talk about with this family that I could have gone longer, but I won't. So here you go. Tim, thanks so much for letting Todd send this to me. I'm going to get it boxed up. I'm going to talk to you and figure out how do we ship into Canada, because God, I don't even know. And there you go. Thanks a lot, everybody. Remember, comment battle down below and have yourselves a fantastic day, and we'll see you on the next one.